Return for a moment to 1975. From the birth of the first digital camera and Saturday Night Live to the end of the Vietnam War, let's take a look back at some of the milestones from your graduation year that have made history. International Women's Year is the name given to 1975 by the United Nations. Gloria Steinem marched down Fifth Avenue in New York City in celebration. 1975 is also the year Junko Tabei becomes the first woman to reach the summit of Mount Everest. The carnival wheel that's the namesake for the Wheel of Fortune is spun for cash and prizes for the very first time on January 6th, and it's been spinning continuously ever since. The show is hosted by Susan Stafford and Chuck Woolery, who will be replaced by Pat Sajak in 1981. On January 12th, the Pittsburgh Steelers win their first ever Super Bowl championship, defeating the Minnesota Vikings 16-6 at Tulane Stadium in New Orleans. The 72nd edition of the baseball championship is played between the Boston Red Sox and the Cincinnati Reds. The Reds, making their third World Series appearance in 6 years, win the series in 4-3 in what ESPN will later hail as the second greatest World Series ever played. Foolish Pleasure, an American Bay thoroughbred racehorse, wins the 101st running of the Kentucky Derby on May 3, 1975. Three hobbyists invent the first commercial digital camera, the Chromaco Cyclops, which develops digital images at a maximum of 32 by 32 pixels. 1975 is also the year Kodak develops its first prototype digital still camera. Catalytic converters become a required component on all cars in the U.S. in 1975. The requirement is mandated by the Clean Air Act of 1970, a response to public concern over air pollution that requires a 90% reduction in emissions within 5 years. In 1975, Rohima Banu, who was the last naturally occurring case of smallpox, is diagnosed and treated in Bangladesh. Also in 1975, Lyme disease is officially identified in Lyme, Connecticut. In addition to winning the Best Picture and Best Director awards, The Godfather Part II receives twice as many Oscars as its predecessor and duplicates its feat of receiving 3 nominations for Best Supporting Actor, making it the last film to receive 3 nominations in a single acting category. The Pet Rock, a collectible toy packaged in a cardboard box designed to resemble a pet carrier, is introduced by advertising executive Gary Dahl. After an intense period of demand, Pet Rocks are discontinued shortly after the 1975 holiday season due to lower sales. Now known universally as Saturday Night Live, the sketch comedy weekly show premieres as NBC's Saturday Night on October 11th and ultimately serves as an express lane to stardom for many comedians and actors, including Chevy Chase, John Belushi, Dan Aykroyd, Bill Murray, Al Franken, Eddie Murphy, Gilda Radner, and many others. Comedian George Carlin hosts the first episode and features musical guests Billy Preston and Janice Ian. Salem's Lot, a horror novel, tells the story of Ben Mears' return to the town of Jerusalem's Lot, or Salem's Lot for short, where he lived as a child, only to discover that residents are becoming vampires, tops the sales charts of books published in 1975. Salem's Lot is American author Stephen King's second published novel, which he refers to as Peyton Place meets Dracula. Winners of the 17th Grammy Awards include Olivia Newton-John's I Honestly Love You for Record of the Year, and Stevie Wonder's second consecutive Album of the Year award for fulfilling this first finale. Captain and Tennille have Billboard's #1 song of 1975, Love Will Keep Us Together. Other musical artists who have multiple top 10 hits in 1975 include David Bowie, Barry White, Elvis Presley, and Rod Stewart. Russian physicist Andrei Dmitriev Sakharov, known as the father of the Soviet hydrogen bomb, is awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in recognition of his concern for the future of humankind and seeking to raise awareness of the nuclear arms race. President Gerald Ford survives 2 assassination attempts in 1975, both in California. The first on September 5th in Sacramento, the second on September 22nd in San Francisco. The first international partnership in space launches July 15, with an Apollo spacecraft carrying a crew of 3 that docks 2 days later. The 9-day Apollo-Soyuz mission brings together former space rivals, the United States and the Soviet Union. Jack Nicklaus wins his 5th Masters tournament in April at the Augusta National Golf Club. A few months later, in August, Nicklaus wins the 1975 PGA Championship at the Firestone Country Club in Akron, Ohio, his 14th win in a major. It's a big year for food and drink options. Famous Amos chocolate chip cookies debut. Burger King introduces fast food fish sandwiches. And new beverages include Country Time Lemonade and Miller Lite. In 1975, the average annual household income was $13,720. The average cost of a new house was $39,000, and the minimum wage was $2.10 an hour. You could buy a dozen eggs for 77 cents, a gallon of gas for 57 cents, and mail a letter for 13 cents. The Oldsmobile Cutlass, which has an original MSRP of $4,133 and consumes an average of 12 miles per gallon, is the year's most popular car in the United States. Cutlass sales jumped to 324,610, an increase of 20% over the previous year. "19 months after her 1974 kidnapping by the Symbionese Liberation Army, Patty Hearst, the granddaughter of American publishing tycoon William Randolph Hearst, is arrested in a San Francisco apartment. After spending 2 years in prison for participating in a bank robbery and other offenses that captivated the national imagination, Hearst is pardoned and released. Construction of the Trans-Alaska Pipeline System, or TAPS, begins March 9th. At 48 inches in diameter and 800 miles long, the pipeline conveys oil from Prudhoe Bay on Alaska's North Slope south to Valdez in south-central Alaska. One of the world's largest pipeline systems, TAPS is credited with serving as a domestic source for oil for the United States to offset the high rise in foreign oil. In the aftermath of the oil crisis in 1973 and 1974, Time magazine names King Faisal of Saudi Arabia its Man of the Year for 1975. The magazine goes on to name American women as its Person of the Year in celebration of shifting gender roles and the success of the American feminist movement. Bill Gates and Paul Allen start Microsoft in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and releases their Altair Basic interpreter. Microsoft's first product distributed by Micro Instrumentation and Telemetry Systems, or MITS, a calculator and personal computer manufacturer, the launch is widely considered the beginning of the personal computer industry. On April 30th, 1975, tanks rolled through the gates of the presidential palace in Saigon, effectively ending the armed conflict that has come to be known as the Vietnam War, almost 2 decades after it began in 1955. Now that we've revisited some of the global milestones of 1975, let's look back at campus life 50 years ago. UMR begins its 104th academic year with an offering of 22 bachelor's degrees, 21 master's degrees, 16 PhD degrees, and 10 doctorates in engineering. Enrollment of 4,461 marks a slight mid-70s decline fueled by the nation's energy crisis and spiraling inflation. Dr. Raymond L. Bisslinghoff, Deputy Director of the National Science Foundation and a former dean at MIT, is appointed as UMR's new chancellor to succeed Dr. Merle Baker. Bisslinghoff's emphasis on energy research leads UMR to host an energy conference that becomes an annual event until 1981, attracting scholarly scientists and engineers from around the world. Missouri Senator Thomas Eagleton visits campus to learn about the use of solar energy from UMR faculty and the industries they're affiliated with. His local press conference topics include inflation and curtailment of government spending, the investigation of the recently resigned President Richard Nixon, and his praise of President Gerald Ford. UMR takes a step toward abolishing its all-male reputation by hiring Annette Caruso, the campus's first woman athletic coach. With a 15% female student body and a burgeoning girls intramural program already in place, Coach Caruso experiments with possibilities for female intercollegiate sports teams. The Ozark Mountain Daredevils entertain minors on the first party weekend with a program of smooth ballads along with a good dose of rock and country music. Student tickets sell for $1.50 each, $3 for general admission. Missouri Industry Day brings 58 companies nationwide to the UMR Multipurpose Building to talk with students about internships and career opportunities. Familiar exhibitors are IBM, Ford Motor Company, Missouri State Highway Department, the Bendix Corporation, Black & Veatch, the U.S. Geological Survey, McDonnell Douglas, Pfizer, and Caterpillar Tractor Company, to name a few. Parents' Day brings moms and dads to campus for tours, football, a theater performance, and quality time with their pride and joy. Dances at fraternities and eating clubs, the coronation of Kathy Schaefer as homecoming queen, a victorious rain-soaked football game against Southeast Missouri State University, and a concert by Don McLean highlight a homecoming weekend long to be remembered. On November 9th, high school and junior college students participate in the annual University Day to explore the campus and connect with its community. The Blood Drive Committee and the Red Cross sponsor 3 blood drives over the year. Students give blood between classes and are refueled with cookies and refreshments. Approximately 80% of the Red Cross's Phelps County blood quota is supplied by UMR students. The humorous bombast column in the Missouri Miners student newspaper features UMR's mascot of the day. Instead of a pickaxe, Joe Miner totes a Playboy magazine and holsters himself with a Hewlett-Packard calculator and 3 cans of beer. The most talked about object of the fall semester comes into the public eye. UMR's 16-inch professional telescope, the largest in the state, is installed in a small observatory located on the northwest corner of campus. The UMR Theater Guild presents Kiss Me Kate, an Edward Albee's play, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, with a cast made up entirely of students and directed by Dr. David Kratz, Assistant Professor of Economics. What a party weekend! Students endure the dreaded Alice dunking, and full regalia reigns at the coronation ceremony, where Missouri Governor Kit Bond is named Honorary St. Patrick. Elizabeth Laurie makes UMR history when chosen as the first female honorary knight of St. Patrick after 6 years of faithful service as social advisor to the St. Pat's Board. Among her many annual duties, she had fully managed and emceed the coronation ceremony all those years. Saturday's parade is a spectacle of floats, antique cars, and the world-famous Anheuser-Busch Clydesdales. That evening, the wildly popular James Gang presents one of the finest hard rock concerts to ever come to Rolla, with student tickets selling for $1. 15 fraternities in UMR's only 2 sororities, Zeta Tau Alpha and Kappa Delta, participate in Greek Week. The traditional Friday evening carnival at Lions Club Park ends with proceeds going to the Rolla Cerebral Palsy School. The fun and chugs continue Saturday with the Greek games and boisterous chariot racings at Elysian Fields. The basketball program reached a milestone when the 1974-1975 team finishes second in the MIAA with an 8-4 conference record and a 16-9 record overall. This performance leads to an invitation to play in an NCAA postseason tournament, a first for a minor basketball team. The UMR swim team, bolstered with 6 All-Americans, places 13th in the nation. Commencement brings the awarding of 762 bachelor's degrees, 274 master's degrees, and 42 doctoral degrees as the class of '75 celebrates a final milestone together. Congratulations to the class of '75 on the 50th anniversary of your graduation. May you keep making memories for years to come.